Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction, NBSP. NBSP. On an unseasonably warm September afternoon in 2016, the quaint town of Cedar Hollow bustled with its usual weekend activity. Antique shops lined the main street, their windows showcasing porcelain trinkets and dulcet memorabilia, while the scent of fresh pastries wafted from the local bakery. As the clock struck 3, families ventured into the local park, children laughing as they played beneath the sprawling willows that marked the boundary of an old serene lake. But for Detective Emily Carter, the day took a harrowing turn. She was on her usual patrol when a call crackled through her radio, a report of a body discovered near the lake's edge. The word body sent a chill down her spine, puncturing the idyllic bubble of Cedar Hollow. When she arrived at the scene, clusters of onlookers formed a disjointed crowd around the yellow tape that cordoned off the area. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the earth, mingling uneasily with the palpable tension that hung in the air. Detective Carter. Detective Carter moved past the throngs, her heart racing, drawn toward the small clearing by the water's edge. There lay the victim, a middle-aged woman, face down, her dark hair splayed across the mud. The somber murmur of the onlookers faded into a distant hum as Emily bent down for a closer inspection. The woman's clothes were tattered, but other details seemed to reveal a chaotic scene: broken branches, disturbed earth, signs of a struggle. The quaint town was about to unravel, and Emily Carter was on the precipice of a shocking investigation. The victim, NBSP. NBSP. With her heart pounding in her chest, Detective Carter carefully observed the scene. A sense of urgency washed over her as she felt the weight of the unsolved puzzle resting on her shoulders. The woman on the ground had a slender build, clad in a lightweight tan sweater that was now stained and muddy. Emily glanced down at the woman's hands, meticulously manicured nails, a stark contrast to the disarray surrounding. As forensic teams began their work, Emily's gaze lingered on the woman's face, once serene, now a final mask etched with shock. Pocketing her notepad, she needed to know who this woman was and why her life had ended so abruptly. After scouring through the contents of the woman's purse, proper identification soon emerged. Her name was Laura Donovan, a 41-year-old librarian who had lived in Cedar Hollow for nearly a decade. Known for her radiant smile, Laura was admired for her dedication to the local community. A string of cordial acquaintances reported nothing but fond memories of book club discussions, seemingly trivial compared to the harrowing circumstances now framing her narrative. As Emily tugged at any leads that surfaced, she discovered a vulnerability behind Laura's vibrant facade. Just weeks prior, she had reported a series of unsettling calls, claiming an anonymous individual had been following her. Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The very fabric of community safety was fraying at the edges. The woman in the mud wasn't just another statistic. She was a person who had lived, laughed, and now, for reasons yet to unravel, had met a sinister fate. The crime scene, NBSP. NBSP. Detective Carter felt the weight of the afternoon sun, dipping toward the horizon as she stood at the perimeter of the crime scene, absorbing every detail. Forensic technicians, clad in sterile white suits, methodically collected evidence around Laura's lifeless body. Emily remained alert, intent on piecing together the events that led to this tragedy. The area was mostly secluded, shielded by a dense stand of trees enveloping the lake's edge. As she surveyed the terrain, Emily noted the broken branches and disturbed foliage that bore witness to a violent struggle. Footprints in the damp earth hinted at a scuffle, and she leaned closer, scanning for a distinct taipan size that might offer insight into Laura's last moment. Nearby, a tangled mass of weeds drew her attention, entangled with remnants from what appeared to be an unintentional brush with danger. A torn piece of fabric, the kind one might find on a jacket sleeve, crackled in the gentle breeze. Emily made a mental note to discuss it with the forensic team. Beneath the surface of this serene ecosystem lay the remnants of humanity's darkness. As she walked further along the shoreline, the sound of water lapping against the rocks served as a haunting reminder of the peaceful painting this crime was marked. The fear that had crept into Laura's life manifested so defiantly, her no longer whispers in the dark, but a violent truth broadcast for all to see. The crime scene's eerie stillness felt almost surreal, punctuated only by the occasional flash of a camera. Emily understood that the answers were hidden within this unsettling beauty. Cedar Hollow was a place of secrets. Unraveling its depths would require patience, courage, and an unwavering resolve to confront the shadow lurking beneath its charming veneer. The Early Investigation, NBSP. As darkness enveloped Cedar Hollow, Detective Carter returned to the station, her mind a whirlwind of unanswered questions. The flickering fluorescent lights greeted her as she strode into the precinct, a familiar hum of activity juxtaposed against the gravity of the case at hand. The quaint town was grappling with an unsettling shock, and Emily felt compelled to bring clarity amidst the chaos. She gathered her notes and started piecing together Laura's last days. A thorough review of her phone log revealed a harrowing series of missed calls from unknown numbers each, one marked by increasing desperation. Moreover, messages sent during the previous few weeks hinted at her fragile state, filled with a mixture of fear. "I need help," one said succinctly, the weight of its brevity underscoring her plight. Emily flagged this for her colleague, Officer Bill Thompson, who was itching to delve deeper. Together, they began reaching out to the community, seeking any familiarity with Laura's situation. The library, a hub of activity, became a focal point for their inquiries. Friends and patrons expressed shock and disbelief, but offered little insight into her distress. As the investigation unfolded, Emily discovered Laura had become increasingly reclusive. A once vibrant figure who hosted lively book discussions now lingered in isolation, retreating from cherished social circles. Friends mentioned strange occurrences, doors left ajar, odd noises filtering through the night, but did not attribute them to a serious threat. The threads of Laura's life began to weave a complex tapestry of concern and subtle dread. Beneath the surface of Cedar Hollow's idyllic charm lay a labyrinth of unaddressed fears, waiting to be navigated. With each discovery, Emily resolved to sift through the fabric of Laura's existence, yearning to bring to light the truth that had ultimately led to tragedy. The Dead Ends NBSP. As Detective Carter delved deeper into Laura's life, the investigation began to stall. Days turned into a blur of interviews and cross-references, yet every lead felt like a mirage, disappearing the moment she tried to grasp onto it. The library, filled with whispers of disbelief and confusion, became a source of frustration rather than clarity. Emily and Officer Thompson combed through security camera footage from nearby businesses, hoping to spot Laura before her last moment. Each grainy video clip offered glimpses of normalcy. Families enjoying ice cream, joggers passing by. But Laura never appeared. Every evening, the duration of their fruitless searching gnawed at her, building a thick cloak of disappointment. Further investigations into the unknown phone numbers produced nothing but empty voices and dead ends. Several of the lines were untraceable, leaving Emily feeling like she was standing in a foggy abyss, answers elusive and just out of reach. Laura's friends struggled to fill in gaps, recalling more about her kindness than her troubles. One afternoon, a small group of book club members gathered in the library, tormented looks on their faces suggesting they sensed something untoward beneath their cheerful repartee. Tentative glances exchanged among them felt thick with guilt. When pressed, they reluctantly recalled Laura's final days of increased anxiety, but little else surfaced. Even with the most exhaustive efforts to uncover the truth, Emily sensed an unrelenting barrier in front of her. Cedar Hollow's prosperous facade cloaked a society that was often reluctant to unearth its own secrets. The weight of silence acted like a vice, and with every ticking second, Emily felt the urgency to solve the enigma before it faded into the whispers of time. A break in the case NBSB. Weeks passed with little progress, but hope surged unexpectedly on a rainy afternoon when Detective Carter received an anonymous tip. The caller's voice was shaky, barely masking their anxiety, as they disclosed information about a suspicious man frequently seen lingering near the library around the time Laura was last seen. Intrigued, Emily wasted no time tracking down this lead. She canvassed the area, speaking with passers-by and checking local establishments for witnesses. Finally, she learned that a man had indeed been seen loitering near the library Simeon, fitting a vague description provided by the anonymous tipster. Disheveled hair, an unkempt beard, and eyes that flickered with unease. With this new information, Emily and Officer Thompson reviewed library security footage again. Hours melted into minutes as they scrutinized the frames. Finally spotting the Manthi camera captured a fleeting glimpse of him lurking just outside the library doors. He seemed restless, glancing over his shoulder frequently, a lingering figure at the edges of Laura's world. Encouraged by this discovery, Emily plunged into gathering more details. They cross-referenced local police records, uncovering a history of minor disturbances linked to the man. With just enough evidence, they tracked him down a local drifter named Ryan Finn, known for erratic behavior and a questionable past. Armed with this newfound information, Emily approached the next steps cautiously. A wave of resolve washed over her. She knew she was closer than ever to unearthing the truth, closer to understanding the dark forces that had overshadowed Laura's life. Secrets concealed by Cedar Hollow were beginning to unravel, revealing a narrative of fear, vulnerability, and the tragic intertwining of lives that had led to a senseless act of violence. The suspect, NBSP. Detective Carter sat at her desk, the rain tapping steadily against the window like an urgent whisper. With a crumpled note of information in her hand, she felt the wave of possibilities pressing down on her. The breakthrough with Ryan Finn had shifted the tide of the investigation, and she was determined to bring him in for questioning. The following day, Emily and Officer Thompson approached Finn's last known whereabouts, an abandoned building on the fringes of town. Its peeling paint and boarded-up windows bore witness to years of neglect, and the air felt heavy with apprehension as they stepped inside. flashlights cutting through the dimness. The stale scent of dampness and decay lingered, an unsettling atmosphere that seemed to amplify their cautious movements. Finn was found huddled in a corner, his disheveled frame casting a haunting figure against the crumbling wall. Upon noticing the officers, his eyes widened, darting nervously as if sensing the storm closing in around him. As they detained him, Emily couldn't ignore the churning sensation in her stomach. When pressed whether he had any connection to Laura Donovan, he fumbled for words, the stammering response washing over her like a cold wave. During the interrogation, Ryan's recounting of events was patchy at best, a mix of contradictions that set alarm bells ringing in Emily's mind. He claimed he had seen Laura numerous times at the library, even stating they had shared conversations. Yet, as the questions deepened, it became increasingly clear he was hiding something. The detective's instincts, honed through years in the field, she pushed for the specifics of their interactions, noticing Ryan's demeanor shift from defensive to almost panic-stricken. He stumbled over small details, like a clumsy dancer on a shaky stage. It became evident he was concealing the truth behind a facade of paranoia. As Emily probed deeper into the fractured narrative, one thing stood relentlessly clear. Ryan Finn was more than just a peripheral figure in this tragedy. He was a suspect entwined in a story that had begun in the shadows, leading to Laura's tragics, and the trial NBSP. As the trial of Ryan Finn began, the atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with tension and anticipation. Onlookers packed the benches, the air crackling with a spectrum of emotions: grief, anger, and a desperate need for justice. Detective Carter sat diligently at the back, notebook in hand, replaying the events that had led them all to this moment. Finn, now facing charges of murder, appeared notably different than the disheveled man she had encountered in the abandoned building weeks before. He wore a suit that hung loosely on his gaunt frame, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and defiance. The defense attorney emphasized the lack of concrete evidence linking him to Laura's death, pointing to the conditional nature of the eyewitness testimonies and circumstantial evidence that had been collected. Carter's heart pounded as the prosecution presented its case. They painted a vivid picture of Laura's life leading up to her murder, amplifying the concerns she'd shared with friends about being followed. Cell phone records were introduced, corroborating the timeline of missed calls from unknown numbers leading up to that fateful day. Every piece of evidence felt like a nail in the coffin. Yet, the defense twisted the narrative, suggesting that Laura had simply been reclusive and paranoid-fueled by her own fear. When it was Carter's turn on the stand, she recounted her investigation with clarity and conviction. Her voice carried through the courtroom, echoing the urgency she had felt as she pieced together Laura's last day. As she described their interactions with Finn and the chilling details of Laura's struggles, the intensity in the room grew. The jury hung on every word. As the trial progressed, both sides presented their starkly contrasting visions of the truth. As emotional testimonies flooded the courtroom, the weight of grief settled in heavy layers on those present. Detective Carter felt the intense gaze of the victim's family across the room, their anguish palpable as they sought closure. Days turned into a grueling marathon of legal theatrics, and as the final arguments unfolded, Emily braced herself for the possibility that justice might remain elusive. Exhumed strength for Laura's memory, She couldn't help but hope that the jury would see through the fog of deceit and recognize the truth lurking beneath. The aftermath, NBSP. In the air. The verdict hung in the air like a specter, a weighty silence sweeping through the courtroom as the jury filed in. Detective Carter's heart raced as the foreperson read aloud the decision. Guilty. A collective sigh erupted, a release laced with both relief and lingering grief. Ryan Finn's expression became one of disbelief, the mask of bravado now crumbling as the reality of his fate settled in. Outside the courtroom, the sun shone brightly against the backdrop of a town that felt forever changed. Cedar Hollow's tranquility had been permanently disrupted, and the shadow of Laura's murder lingered over its streets. Memorials sprang up in her honor, small gathering in the park where she had often spent time. Flowers, candles, and handwritten notes filled the space, a testament to the lives she had touched. Detective Carter spent long hours reflecting on the case, wrestling with the emotional burden of what it meant to pursue justice amidst a community that struggled to heal. Both the trial and the desperate search for truth had exposed buried secrets. Yet the resolution felt bittersweet. Cedar Hollow was a tight-knit town, and rumors swirled like autumn leaves, blurring the line between truth and speculation. As the months passed, Emily dedicated her energy to supporting Laura's family. She revisited their home, where she had initially conducted interviews, and offered them her condolences and support, a link between the tragedy and the comfort of community. Laura's loved ones spoke about their determination to channel their grief into advocacy, working to raise awareness about domestic violence and mental health support. Despite the justice served, Emily recognized there was much work left to do. Her own heart remained heavy with the realization that many would still suffer in silence, hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. Laura's story had been a catalyst for change, igniting conversations that needed to be had. As Cedar Hollow trudged toward recovery, Emily found solace in her role, embodying a commitment to protect those who could not protect themselves, a badge of honor she wore with quiet dignity. Reflection, NBSP. As the final echoes of the trial faded, Detective Carter found herself walking the familiar streets of Cedar Hollow, reflecting on the journey that had intertwined her life with Laura Donovan's. The vibrant colors of fall foliage matched her internal quest for both closure and understanding. Each leaf that fluttered to the ground symbolized fragments of their shared history, a life of laughter, connection, and ultimately, tragedy. Emily recalled the warmth of Laura's smile and the unsettling shadows that had stalked her, forever altering how she viewed her role in the community. The resolve she held in the face of fear clung to her spirit like a well-worn coat. But with every passing day, the haunting echoes of the past reminded her not just of the darkness, but of the resilience sparked by Laura's story. She had witnessed the depth of human suffering, intertwined with incredible acts of love and courage. In her darkest hours, Laura had fought to be heard, her voice transcending her final moments and resonating within the hearts of those who chose to remember. Emily yearned to carry that spirit forward, shedding light on difficult topics that needed discussion. With each sunrise, she embraced a renewed sense of purpose, channeling her experiences into initiatives that aim to empower others. Laura may have left this world far too soon, but through Emily's steadfast commitment, Her legacy would endure, illuminating the journey for those still trapped in silence.